Is the bill be now read a second time? And I call the member for Strathfield.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to make a contribution to this debate about the Crimes Amendment Incitement to Racial Hatred Bill 2025. Race has no place in New South Wales, and yet in recent months we have seen a shocking rise in racial hatred, particularly anti-Semitism. The systematic, coordinated, widespread firebombing of synagogues, homes, and even a childcare centre. That's why this bill is so important, and it's also so urgent. It sends a clear and unequivocal message that racial hatred is not just unacceptable, it is now a crime. This bill makes it an offence to intentionally and publicly incite hatred against a person or group because of their race. And let's be clear, this law doesn't just apply to one racial community. It applies to anyone targeted for their racial, ethnic or national background, whether someone is Jewish or Asian or Indigenous or African or Muslim. This law is designed to protect them. I know firsthand how real and damaging racism can be. I've spent decades campaigning against racism, against Asian Australians, and I've experienced myself, as have so many other Australians. Racism takes so many forms. In the playground, snide comments, there's bullying. I remember in the 1970s and 1980s, at school, the refrain then was Ching Chong Chinaman. In the 1990s, it was get on your boat. That was what we heard then. More recently, on Anzac Day 2023, I wrote an article in the Sydney Morning Herald arguing that the Anzac story belongs to all Australians, not just white Australians. And that article triggered a flood of online hate, white supremacists posting vile racist abuse, including cartoon images of a Chinese person or Asian person being hanged. Would such actions be caught under this new law? That remains to be tested. But what is clear is that racial hatred is alive in our society, and we must take stronger action to stop it. And this is not just about one incident or one group. We have seen racial vilification and hate directed at many communities. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Asian Australians, especially Chinese Australians, were subjected to an unprecedented wave of racism. People were spat on in the street, businesses were boycotted, even children were bullied at school. My own community was blamed for a virus as if an entire race of people could somehow be responsible. My neighbour at the time asked me if I couldn't go to the supermarket for her because she was too afraid to go and do her grocery shopping herself. And we saw media commentators and even some politicians fuel these divisions. The result, a surge at the time in anti-Asian hate crimes across Australia. Mr Speaker, this bill won't stop racism or discrimination. It can't legislate the human heart. And this bill won't erase the harm that's been done. But it will ensure that if people intentionally incite racial hatred, there will be consequences. It is a crucial step in protecting our community from experience this type of hatred on an ongoing basis. Some have asked whether this bill will restrict the implied, well, it was framed in terms of freedom of speech. It is actually an implied constitutional right to political communication. The High Court has made clear there is no personal right to freedom of speech in Australia. It is a implied constitutional right connected with our system of democracy. And let me say this, free speech is fundamental to our democracy, but there is no right to incite hatred. This law has been carefully drafted to ensure that it does not criminalise debate, disagreement, or even offence, but it does criminalise intentional incitement to hatred. The offence under this bill has 4 key elements. It must be a public act. This means that behaviour must happen in public where it can influence others, whether through speeches, online posts, graffiti, or other public statements. The act must incite hatred. Not just anger or offence or insult, but actual hatred, an extreme and dangerous emotion that fuels division and violence. The incitement must be intentional. The person that is being prosecuted must intend to incite that hatred. Not just anger, offence or insult, but actual hatred, an extreme and dangerous emotion that fuels division. The incitement must be based on race. This law specifically targets incitement of racial hatred, ensuring its focus remains on protecting communities from discrimination and vilification. And to protect legitimate public discourse, the bill also includes an exemption for religious teachings, ensuring that discussions of faith are not unfairly restricted. These safeguards make it clear this law is not about silencing political communication. It does not criminalise debate or even offence. It only applies where someone intentionally incites hatred. That is a high bar, Mr. Speaker. Political discussion, robust disagreement, even harsh criticism, none of that is impacted. But we draw a line when words are used as weapons to incite hatred, fear and violence. This bill is not just about words, it's about safety. It's about a strong statement of who we are and what we stand for. Because when hate speech goes unchallenged, it creates the conditions for violence. It isolates communities. It makes people afraid to walk down the street, go to work, or send their kids to school. We have seen where unchecked hate can lead. History tells us that. And we have seen it in the most recent rise of anti-Semitic attacks, Islamophobia and racism in our own communities. We cannot allow that to continue. Some have raised concerns that this bill focuses only on racial hatred, while other minority groups, such as those covered under Section 93Z of the New South Wales Crimes Act, do not receive the same protections. I fully acknowledge that. And I do believe that if we are serious about tackling hate speech, we must ensure that all communities vulnerable to vilification, whether based on race, religion, sexuality, gender identity or disability, are equally protected under the law. However, protecting effective balanced legislation to criminalise incitement to hatred against these communities is complex and it will take time. So let's get this first step done now in respect of racial hatred. It is urgent, Mr. Speaker. This bill is a step towards a safer, more inclusive New South Wales. It is recognition that all of us, no matter where we come from, deserve to live without fear. And it is a call to action for all of us to stand up, speak out and reject hate in all its forms. I support this bill because no one should feel unsafe because of their race, because we are stronger together. Let's send a clear message today. New South Wales stands against hate and we will not let it divide us.
I thank the member. The question is the bill be now read a second time.